let's get into a little bit some of the responses to Biden's State of the Union address. We looked at Sarah Huckabee Sanders in the last segment, if you're watching this in clip form. And now I want to walk through some other individuals, starting off with Senator Kennedy. Try to figure out what on earth he's saying in this clip. Again, responding to Biden's State of the Union address. We previously covered that, and it was a really good speech. Take a look.
Washington, you have to watch what people do, not what they say. In Washington, what you do is what you believe, and everything else is just cottage cheese. After 2 years, we know what President Biden believes because we know what he's done. Bigger government, higher taxes, more spending, more debt, more regulation, an open border, a weaker military, criminals are the good guys, a drag queen for every school library, whether the parents want that or not. Now, those aren't words. That's President Biden's record. And
are we talking about a different President Biden? What on earth is that? So this is very similar to my analysis on the Sarah Huckabee Sanders speech. When you can't respond to the items that Biden listed that absolutely will improve the lives of working Americans, expanding the Affordable Care Act so people have the coverage that they need, and the one that he's pushing hard on right now, because there were some Republicans that went on board with this, was capping the cost of insulin for all Americans, not just Medicare recipients, that he did get through, lowering prescription drug costs, allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drugs, which they weren't doing before, and absolutely saves the government money, saves us money. Completely common sense, but Republicans against it. Because John Kennedy can't craft a good argument for why those things are bad, why those things make Biden a radical lefty and a Marxist and a horrible globalist communist, he has to instead go to Biden has called up all of the drag queens to go come for your children, right? That has to be the narrative from Senator John Kennedy. And it really is infuriating, but because I'm trying to stay a little bit lighter-hearted right now, quite silly to watch them attempt to just ignore all the things Biden laid out, successes and proposals that are common sense, that are popular, and that would help the lives of Americans, and instead tell a fun fantasy story for their audience. Here's another moment where one of the individuals, Republican Representative Nick LaLota, gets asked on CNN about the heckling that was going on.
Did you do any heckling?
I did. I was upset when the president lied about his statement on Social Security and Medicare.
What did
and
you
I was
say?
vocal about that. I booed the president during that time. I come from New York. We call it the Bronx cheer. When we see something that we don't like, and certainly something that somebody was lying to us in our own house, we're going to give some feedback then.
So what is he saying that Biden's lying to him about? If you're a full show viewer or listener, you know what this is in reference to. If you're watching as a clip, just to give you the context, Biden said that some Republicans, there are Republicans who want to sunset all federal programs. He specifically said sunset Medicare and Social Security, which fall into all federal programs. And we looked at in a previous segment in Tim Scott's, that's still publicly available, Rescue America plan. It explicitly says that all federal programs should be sunsetted, meaning Medicare and Social Security. It says if a law is worth staying, essentially, then Congress should reauthorize it every 5 years. And so every 5 years, Medicare and Social Security would be threatened, and the lives of all the people that benefit from that program, those two programs, would have their well-being threatened. And so Biden was not lying. That individual was lying. But to his credit, just because I saw this and want to, like I said, give him some credit here, this was his view on George Santos.
And standing so close to the aisle that the president walks down, cabinet members, Supreme Court justices, he should have just quietly sat at the back of the room. Do you agree?
He's a sociopath, George Santos. He looks for that attention. Even the negative attention drives him. It's become an embarrassment and a distraction to the Republicans in the House. We want to focus on our commitment to America. We want to talk about putting our economy back.
Okay, he's a sociopath. 100% agree with him there. And then we get to Kevin McCarthy's appearance on Fox and Friends. First, still bringing up the Chinese surveillance balloon.
Inspired, and just what this nation went through in the last week, the world was watching with this balloon, the sovereignty, and to try to ignore what China has been doing, it just adds more damage to this nation. So
why am I poking fun at this? Because we've learned that Biden increasing defenses against Chinese espionage is the reason that that balloon was identified, and the reason that the 3 balloons that flew over the United States whenever Trump was president weren't identified, because the defenses hadn't been increased in the ways that they have been under Biden. So the narrative is just completely backwards. And if you flipped the roles where Trump was in the place of Biden, Biden was in the place of Trump, they would have made that such a big story about how amazing Trump was for increasing those defenses. That's why the balloon was identified and he shot it down. It's so amazing. Trump's the best. But instead, Biden's still in the wrong somehow, because he can never be right. Okay, next clip of Kevin McCarthy on Fox and Friends.
Well, the president was trying to goat the members, and the members are passionate about it. But the one thing the president was saying is something that he knew was not true.
This is him getting asked about the heckling.
I just spent an hour with him. I've said it many times before. Social Security and Medicare are off the table. He tried.
You might be saying that, but other powerful members of your party are saying they are interested in those being on the table. And that's all Biden said. He didn't say Kevin McCarthy. He didn't say the entire Republican Party. He said some Republicans are. And as I talked about previously in the segment, Rick Scott's an example of that. We also looked at in a previous segment, Republican Representative Michael Waltz, who alluded to the entitlements needing to be looked at, which are Medicare and Social Security. Then you have Marco Rubio also attempting to not really address what Biden said, instead address the fantasy world that many people live in.
You didn't hear a lot of talk about pregnant men tonight. You didn't hear a lot of talk about some of these crazy things, because they're pivoting now to an election mode, and they know all that stuff is toxic. So they're trying to pretend it's not happening, but it remains at the core and at the heart of their administration. Not a lot of woke talk tonight, except for the climate stuff, which, by the way, he doesn't tell you, benefits China.
Again, the fantasy is that woke means what they think it does. And of course, the pregnant men thing is fascinating to watch, just how little they have an interest in understanding the very issues that they're attacking, if that makes sense. It's not that complicated. It's not that wild, and it's not that new, but their understanding of it, I guess, is new. And so they've chosen to take the more ignorant stance and say, this is all crazy, when they could spend that time learning the things that aren't that hard to understand, specifically as he was alluding to there in regard to trans men, for example. Here, now we can get to a little bit more reason. AOC had a response that touched on an important point in regard to the speech.
And it's really shocking, even the things that the overall Republican Party refused to stand for. Paying public school teachers, public health policy, basic education policy, raising the wage for some of our lowest paid workers in the United States. You know, I mean, this should be really basic stuff, sky is blue kind of stuff. And the Republican Party, I think, really showed the country who they are tonight. And it's really shocking.
Yeah, so when Kevin McCarthy and the Republican Party are not standing for all these things, a few she listed there, but raising the wage for low wage and hardworking Americans, and public school teachers needing to be more properly invested in, all these different things. America saw the fact that Biden's listing popular common sense things, and the Republican Party is either being silent and not clapping, or outright heckling him over some of these different things, or cheering about the idea of repealing the Inflation Reduction Act that has helped so many people, or will help so many people's lives, has been passed to do those things. Last clip we'll look at as far as these responses to the speech. Kamala Harris getting asked about Biden's low approval.
Well, that's not going to stop, even if some people are cynical about it.
The problems aren't just inside that chamber, though. The president also facing a skeptical public. A majority don't think they're better off since he took office. A majority don't approve of the job he's doing.
Well, listen, there's no question, and again, the president spoke about this, and it's on his mind every day. People are still hurting in America. As he started his presentation last night, talking about the fact that we've come out of an historic pandemic, the economic crisis that resulted, supply chain crisis that resulted. You look at the cost of milk and eggs, it's about $4.25, I think, on average in the country. So, yeah, people are still hurting, and we still have work to do. I think the president was clear that the job is not done. We brought
we'll stop
down
it there. And then she starts listing much of what we've gone through. But I think that's a perfectly fair response and a perfectly fair message for Biden. Here's what we've done. Some of it hasn't yet, most of it, probably lots of it hasn't been put into effect yet. So here are the things we've done, and expect these to start improving your life. But also, we are coming out of, we're not far at all. We're still technically fully getting through it. We're just getting back from an economic crisis caused by a completely unprecedented and historic pandemic. And that was a crisis. And it doesn't take just, 6 months to heal from that. And so we recognize there's pain still, as there always is in the lives of Americans, that needs to be addressed. But more specifically, because of the economic crisis that the pandemic caused, there is still a lot of pain, the inflation that the necessary response to the economic crisis caused, and the price gouging from corporations on top of that, and the supply chain problems that contributed to inflation, all these price increases we've seen, and that impacts your life. And again, I'm speaking as if I'm them, and we recognize that, and we want to continue to work on behalf of your interests. And here's what we're going to do to improve your life. The alternative is, and then make that clear, as I think has been done many, many, many times. So there's some of the responses. Very fascinating. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get the full bonus show every single Saturday, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley. Link in the description.